Let's get after it. There you go.
Welcome to the Gold Medal Excellence Podcast. I'm your host, Alexander Payne, along with my co-host, Chris Asher. And today in the program, we're joined by Brandon Campbell. Brandon, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Happy to be here.
There he is.
I'm going to start from the very beginning. Born in St. Louis, Missouri. Talk about your childhood and growing up there.
Pretty good childhood. I had both my parents till I was 14, and then my dad passed away. But you know, I got excuse me, I got enough of them in my life to help move on to the next stages of my life. It was actually I had an opportunity to do everything that he wanted me to be successful at, and that's pretty much all he wanted. But growing up in St. Louis, it was pretty much just sports and school for me. Unfortunately, I wasn't that great of a student, but I was able to work at it and become better. But it was mainly just a lot of sports and able to compete against a lot of guys that came out of our area who had the same type of athleticism. And it was just good, man. It was a good thing. Just trying to stay afloat and get that goal of getting out of there. That was part of the plan for me going out to California.
Yeah. What sports did you play as a kid?
I played all of them. I started out with baseball, and then I got on my first basketball team, and I was in love with it since. Love football. Actually, probably my favorite sport. I mean, Chris used to give me a lot of grief about the fact that I should stop playing both sports and go to football, but it is my favorite sport. And then, of course, track and field came along later. Once I got to high school, and it was just something I was good at. And then once I got to college, I fell in love with it.
Yeah, St. Louis is definitely known for its baseball. The Cardinals fan base is viewed as one of the best in baseball and maybe all of sports even, but it also has a very rich basketball tradition. Most recently, the younger audience will associate St. Louis with Jayson Tatum, who has St. Louis roots, as well as his dad. Did you ever get to play with Jayson Tatum's dad in basketball?
Yeah, I played against his dad a lot.
Wow, I didn't know that.
We ended up becoming we actually became pretty cool. I played against him a few times. A story about him, my first time ever seeing Justin. We were at a gym, and I was boxing him out, and he jumped straight off the ground and dunked it on me. And that was actually from that day on, I knew I had to get some strength, because his dad was like 6'8". It had a body of a man at that age, as teenagers. And yeah, I knew there was nothing I could do with him physically. So that was around the time when I started getting in the weight room because of his dad.
So you're not surprised at all that his son is now probably the best player in the world?
Oh no, when your dad's Justin Tatum and your godfather's Larry Hughes, man, it's almost destined for you to make it. It's been great watching that young man do his thing since he was in high school. And when I'm out, because I live in Texas, but I'm as St. Louis as can be. When I'm talking trash about the basketball players that come out of St. Louis and his name comes up, he's proven me right in a lot of my arguments. So I think he's the best thing that's come out the city basketball wise, in my opinion.
So after high school, you move on to Cal State Fullerton, do basketball and track. Talk more about your recruiting process, how you ultimately landed at Cal State Fullerton, and what the transition was from St. Louis, Missouri to Orange County, California.
Uh, the transition. Well, I'll start with the recruiting process. Um, as far as Cal State Fullerton goes, they were in competition with a few other schools, but everybody knew based off of me playing basketball and running track that I needed a school that was going to provide and allow me to do both. And Cal State Fullerton came into the picture. One of the coaches by the name of Ronnie Dean, who's actually a St. Louis guy. He was recruiting me, and he knew that track was very important as well as basketball, even though basketball was going to pay the bills. But he knew track, how important track was, and they went down, talked to the track coaches during the recruiting process, and I mean, they ran into a guy by the name of Chris Asher, and
There we go.
the rest is history. I mean, from he well, I can say this now. He basically took over the recruiting process. Basketball had let me know that they wanted me firsthand. They loved my athleticism, but they knew that track was going to be the deal breaker. And I'm pretty sure that once Chris heard what my marks were, he was like, "Oh, I got to talk to this kid." And he kept the communication open frequently, more consistent than anybody else. And not to mention, man, I was sold on the recruiting class that he was bringing in as well alongside me. It was in transition into taking that visit to the school. Once I got a chance to meet some teammates and meet the coaches and everything, it was a done deal. I knew where I was going before I even left my visit.
Yeah, I want to speak on it. So a couple of things, like Brandon reiterate on. So two things. First thing I want to say, college basketball coaches, all the coaches in the college athletic department, and Brandon's coach college, they'll tell you, everybody communicates, everybody's friendly. But college basketball coaches never come to the track and field office and say anything. Like you get football track or football baseball, you might even get basketball baseball. And I remember the coaches came in and like, we're recruiting this kid from St. Louis and he's got track marks. We want you to talk to him. And we said this before in our interview, we had no money in track and field. Like we had none. We were hustling, we were recruiting, we were getting good kids. And and the basketball coaches don't know track marks. They're like, man, we got this kid from St. Louis and he's run, we think he's long jump like 24 feet and he's high jump, we think 7 feet. And he's run like a 47-second 400. And me and Ron Kamaka and John Elders were kind of just looking at each other like, what? Like, who is this? What? And all my thinking was, how's this dude even in our office? How are we even talking to this guy? So Brandon, you might want to go back and talk about Cardinal Ritter, because I was like, wait a minute, this dude, the track marks this guy has, Arkansas, UCLA, USC, he's 6'4". What's going on? What did we miss? And I think, Brandon, you said it before, you couldn't play your junior year of basketball. I would say this, you slipped under the radar basketball recruiting because you couldn't play your junior year or something. Track marks you had, but you wanted to play basketball. So I think what happened, you said, was out of all the basketball schools recruiting me, Fullerton, you said what, Howard, Creighton, but whatever, Fullerton had like the best track program. So like reiterate on that, because you weren't supposed to slip to us. Just on track. I guess everyone was sleeping on track.
Yeah, track wise, I probably, if time would have permitted for me to go through the recruiting process with strictly just track, I probably would have had some bigger schools. But like I said, a lot of them knew that I was letting everybody know I'm a basketball player. I'm not even thinking about going strictly track. And the schools that I had to choose from besides Cal State Fullerton, especially coming from a 100% Black high school, I had a historically Black university on my radar, which was Howard University, which actually had a basketball team and had a track program. But the other schools were Xavier of Ohio and Creighton, which at the time neither one of them had a a track and field team at the time, and the University of Iowa. I went to their camp for their basketball camp. I actually got MVP of that camp, and unfortunately, they needed a big man. They only had one more scholarship left, and the track coaches were in a dilemma because it's like, well, what do we got to do to get you here? And it's like, man, that was the one thing that could have got me there. And then the fifth school was Fullerton, and like I said, man, I came on my visit, and even without the red carpet being laid out, it was, and I say that because it was all straightforward. It was actually the most business savvy recruiting visit that I had. Everybody academically was saying the things that I needed help with, and it was basically a situation where it was, come here and we just gonna unleash you and do our best with you. So I was with it, and once I like I said, I was on that visit and I knew where I was signing in.
Talk more about what it was like having Chris coach you. I've had Chris coach me in private lessons. I mean, in private lessons, there's no pressure to win from any administrators, but when he was coaching you, he was still very young in his coaching career. Talk more about what it was having Chris coach you.
It was good. It was a good learning experience, especially actually for more for my coaching career. Because as a young athlete, man, you don't. I'm human. You know, I learned more and appreciated more when he was gone, because while he was there, I didn't know how much I had actually learned or how much I had actually knew. But I mean, the thing that stands out the most for him as a coach is the passion of it, passion, confidence, and work ethic. Man, he was the hardest working man in college, so to speak. You know, working at Olive Garden, coaching us, getting us to track meets, still having his own personal life. He worked hard at first. You know, a lot of people may not have got a chance to see that because it was, I only remember maybe 1 or 2 years of it, and that guy's been smooth sailing and moving up ever since. So it was good to see where he started at. Hell, the car he drove, it fit the situation of a working man, and just to watch his progression as a coach as well as a man, it was good to see. And like I said, it wasn't until I became a man and I was going through the same things myself. It wasn't really appreciated to its fullest until then. But man, as a young coach, he was live. He was always animated, always enthusiastic, always motivational. And one thing I used as a coach that I took from him, and he probably don't even know this, is as a coach, you build relationships with athletes from other places and other schools and other teams. But one thing I learned from him is, if you're on my team, I'm riding with you. I don't want nobody else's athlete. I'm riding with what I got. And that was one of the things that I went into it with, and I instilled that into my athletes as well, is I'm rocking with y'all, win or lose. So either we're gonna win or we're gonna lose trying. And that's kind of like how I go about everything now. Yeah, with that sort of confidence.
It's fun. I mean, I remember Brandon said Olive Garden. Brandon was on a recruiting trip. The basketball coaches came into Olive Garden. I was like, I got to get this kid.
Right.
And I remember they were sitting at the table, and Olive Garden, you got breadsticks and drinks. And I was running their table every minute. Like, let me fill up his Coke. Let me make sure he got breadsticks. Let me make sure he got the, the Alfredo sauce, whatever they needed. I was like, yo, what do you guys need? What do y'all need? Now we good. I'm like, you sure? You sure? And people know that Brandon's like my little brother. So I've seen him grow and develop, and he, I just couldn't, I'll be honest, I don't know if I couldn't believe that we stumbled and lucked into getting a student athlete like that. And what people don't know, is we had a bunch of guys. We had some multiple guys. We had some twin brothers named Kasim and Hassan Dickens, and we had Kevin Howard, and we had Derek Brown. But I tell people, Brandon Campbell was the guy that really elevated and made the Cal State Fullerton track and field program, because now they're Big West champions, perennial. But we would go to meets and they'd be like, where did y'all get this dude at? Where did he come from? He don't supposed to be there. And it was like, okay, we gotta make it happen with this guy, you know. And it was just I don't know, he was all in. He was all on board.
Also, you played under head coach John Elders. We had John Elders on the program at the beginning of this Gold Medal Excellence podcast. But Brandon, I'm gonna go with you. What was it like having John Elders as your head coach?
Oh, it was great. Like I said about Chris, it's kind of a similar situation. And of course, when I was at Fullerton, my coaches were Chris, Coach Elders, Ron Kamaka, and Mike Powell. I had my own individual relationship with each of them. The respect that I have for them, all of those guys, my respect isn't earned easy, especially as a student athlete that needed them to get to where I needed to get to. I'm not saying that I was a hard head. I wasn't that at all. I was a student. I came by the office more than anybody else. I sat in there with all of them at the same time. But a lot of people may not know, I got to spend a lot of time with Coach Elders. And I'm very grateful for that. Because I feel like a lot of people throw that GOAT stuff out there. I don't want to be known as that. I want to be known as one of the best students of the track and field program. I went back, I did the whole history back to when we won a Division II national title cross country wide. I did my research on all the people that came before me. So a lot of that knowledge came from Coach Elders. He was the guy that was there the longest. And he's probably the only guy that I would say loves the track and field program there more than I do. Because of the longevity that he spent there. But personally, that's my guy, man. One of the stories that I tell about him all the time is my whole career there, and even to this day, he's had bad eyesight. You know what I mean? And he drives, and it's hard for him to see things, but he's still capable of doing a lot of the things that he was doing in the past when his vision was better. But it was my senior year, and I had to go to nationals. It was at LSU, and there was a rainstorm, so we couldn't fly straight into Baton Rouge. We had to, I don't know what city we flew into, but we had to fly into a different city in a whole nother state.
Like New Orleans or something, right?
No, we were in we had to drive from a different state.
Oh, wow.
And I remember thinking to myself, like, you know what? I was hesitant in getting in the car because I've been with Coach for 4 years, you know what I mean? And I'm like, man, you know what? I got in the car. I didn't say nothing, and I sat there with him, and that man, he got me all the way to nationals in a rainstorm from a different state. Didn't know where we were going. Wasn't no GPS then.
Yep.
Wasn't no GPS. And I got there, and you know, part of that All-American, it was a wholehearted effort. You know, Chris wasn't there, but I mean, he was the sprint coach, and he had something to do with it. Coach Powell's knowledge, Coach Kamaka, him and his wife had to drive there. Everybody, the whole coaching staff had something to do with me getting All-American. So that's what made it huge. And Coach Elder's part, him being a cross-country coach and not having that expertise in my events, he got me there. He got me there to show the talent, and that was huge. I'll never forget that. But I got older, and he hired me on his coaching staff twice. So I got plenty of Jake stories.
Oh yeah, yeah. While we're on this, I don't know. Alexander might talk to you later, but just discuss. I don't want to forget about basketball. You were on basketball scholarship. Talk about how the basketball coaches' relationships were with you. I think Bob Hawking was the one that got. You know, I remember as a freshman, you know, you won the Big West title in the long jump, and I remember the basketball coaches being out there, like so excited, and just talk about, you know, even the basketball part, because you wouldn't have been there without basketball. That's what people don't get. People like Brandon Campbell is the greatest track. I'm like, what you don't understand was Brandon Campbell was on basketball scholarship. People don't know this. Brandon Campbell did not come to the track until the Big West Conference tournament was done. Like Brandon would be playing basketball and he would just show up and beat these cats. Yeah, I mean, in basketball, I thought you were amazing. You used to do windmill dunks, all that stuff. So I just talk about a little bit about the basketball guy.
Basketball, of course, was the first love. I always constantly had to fight that battle of everybody was like, man, if you would just put the ball down and go full-time track, you might go further. And I'm the guy putting in the work, so it's kind of like I can go far in this too. Mm-hmm. And in basketball, I was actually a late bloomer, so to speak, because like you said, I had to sit out because of illegal recruitment accusations in high school. And that was during my junior year, which was most important. But what a lot of people don't know is I signed my scholarship before I even put on a uniform at the high school that I ended up transferring to, which was huge, which means I went from nothing to something in one summer. It didn't take a year period of time in order to do so. So it was kind of, I was used to the transition of doing both sports and coming into college. The first 2 years of college was great because, like you said, Coach Hawking included you all in on the recruitment of me. And those first 2 years, because he was only my coach for 2 years, it was like I even though track season came and I was in y'all's hands, they still made sure they touched me and contacted me and didn't just, oh, well, he's at track now, we don't got to worry about him. They were still in tune with everything. And you're right. They heard the hype and they showed up to the track meets to see it for themselves. It's a lot different than me running with the rest of the basketball team, you know, and them seeing glimpses of what I'm capable of doing at the track. And they had to come out and see it firsthand. And that helped out a lot coming into my sophomore season because I like to say, yeah, Coach Hawk, those guys were good with resting me because we're doing two sports. A lot of injuries came, you know, and it had to be balanced well. Nothing against the coaches that I had the previous 2 years, but they weren't the ones that recruited me. So that's when a little bit of friction was caused because of basketball and track, because once you get a new coach, the track kind of jeopardizes my role on the basketball team. Mm-hmm. And I feel like a lot of times I was looked to be replaced on the basketball team, but me being me, I didn't fault those guys for that because it is a business, and it gave me the opportunity for the next 2 years, the more guys that they brought in to have a backup plan, because you never know if I'm gonna get hurt doing track and field and how that's gonna affect basketball. But it stepped up the level of competition because I still started every game. So it lit something up under me. It brought kind of a competitive void that I had on the basketball court, because I had my position. It was my position. I was starting every game, but I think I needed a little bit of pressure. In track and field, it was a sport where it was me against anybody else I competed against. And I knew what I was capable of, but being able to lead within that team atmosphere of basketball, that was the challenge that I had to overcome and accomplish.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say this, people don't know, even while you're in track season, you had to go to basketball stuff. You had to manage your time. Like there was track time, you'd be like, hey coach, I gotta run the basketball. And they paid the bills. We couldn't say nothing. It was like, oh yeah, we would forget because we'd be so excited. Oh, Brandon can do this. Like, nah, I got a scrimmage, or I gotta go, I gotta go to my individual lessons with the coaches. But you don't see too many. Rarely do you ever see a track and field and basketball athletes at a D1 school at a high level. So that's why I say Brandon started in basketball. He started. So it wasn't like he was some role player that was just a bum. He was a starter that just happened to be more phenomenal in track and field.
Right.
You earned All-American honors in the high jump, qualified for the NCAA championships in both the long jump and the high jump on 2 separate years. Also was a 2-time conference champion in the long jump and high jump, was a member of 2 championship 4x400 meter relay teams. He holds 6 school records, including the high jump at 7 feet 4.5, the long jump at 25:10, 400 meters at 46:98, 6,637 points scored in the decathlon. And you played 84 basketball games at Cal State Fullerton. You graduated in 2005 with a degree in sociology. Talk more about how good you felt after you left Cal State Fullerton, knowing that you leave it all out there in the field and set a good legacy.
Man, it was actually kind of stressful, to be honest with you, because I was like, man, what am I gonna do now? The injuries, I think the injuries is what caused a lot of that stress, because at that time I was still trying to pursue something through the injuries that I had. That's not a smart thing to do. I probably should have sought out some doctors or did my research and did more due diligence in trying to get myself healthy. But I was still doing things athletically in pain that was still far greater than what the average person could do. It was actually a hard transition, even though it was the best thing for me. While I was in college and the injuries were occurring, I actually still had 1 year of basketball left. They were adamant about getting that 6th hardship year, but not saying that I'm nowhere near what Kobe Bryant was, but as far as the rehabbing process, as much as I got hurt, I think I went through 5 or 6 rehab processes while I was in college. And it just, you just get tired of rehabbing.
The training room, you get tired of it.
Yeah.
I want to say this. I want people to know this who don't necessarily know Brandon, or they may know him. Brandon, I forget the year, he partially tore his knee in basketball. It was like the first or second game. And
yep.
They said he has to have surgery or it can heal by itself. But it was like first or second game. He was starting, and then basketball was done, and we were like, all right, well, track's gonna be done for the year, because back then you had to have surgery or whatever. And people don't know this. He had a partially torn ACL or MCL, and he came back in time for track, and that's when he had his best track year ever.
Yep.
Understand this. He's on a partially torn knee that healed. So basketball starts in when? Back then, November. He was in track by March. He ended up getting Big West Conference Athlete of the Year. He jumped 7.4 in the high jump, 25:10 in the long jump. People don't know, he ran 10.6 in 100 meters. He ran 21.2 in the 200 meters, ran 46.4. But he came back on a torn knee and got Big West Athlete of the Year in in track. And from a coaching standpoint, it was like the most amazing thing I ever saw, because you're supposed to be out a year and rehabbing. And to go 7, 4.5 in the high jump, 25, 10, it was crazy.
Yeah. Then you started doing coaching. You start out as a personal speed coach and assistant coach at Huntington Beach High School, where you qualify 3 high school students for the CIF championships. Talk more about the transition from player to coach and how you got your start at Huntington Beach High School.
It's actually, man, how I got started at Huntington Beach. Actually, man, I actually got suckered into it. There was a young man, Arash, a young man named Arash Babu. He was a high school student, and he called the Cal State Fullerton track offices looking for a high jump coach. And at the time the high jump coach was Ron Kamaka, and he called me, and he gave me the young man's number. I called him, and I wanted to set up some time to train him. And I'm like, do you have a facility? He's like, yeah, we could work out at my high school. So I go by Huntington Beach High School, and the first day I showed up, I was about to work with the one kid, and the coach of the team, he said it was okay, good to go, but he wasn't the jumps coach. The jumps coach was another young lady who was also okay with it. And she was like, yeah, it's okay. You can help him out, but you have to work with all my jumpers. Okay, will do. Well, I guess I had that session rocking, and we had some kids doing some things that day. I got offered the job that day.
That's awesome.
2006, after that, you move on to Cal State Fullerton, your alma mater, to come back as an assistant coach. You have coached several high NCAA qualifiers while you're coaching at Cal State Fullerton. Talk more about what it was like coming back to Cal State Fullerton and being now an assistant coach under John Elders.
It was actually, it was a great experience for me. That was a part from a question that you asked earlier. That was coaching on the staff with Coach Elders. It built my respect for him even more, and our individual relationship. Like we are friends. That's my guy. Because of that, not my coach. That's my friend. So basically, it was good in building a relationship with him, but in all actuality, it was my dream job. That's where I planned on retiring at. I didn't know it was going to be my start off job. I thought that I would end up there, track and field legend comes back to become the head coach after I've done all this other stuff. It was actually the other way around. And I had the challenge of coming into some place where I'm loved and everybody knows me, where the expectation is high, and then going to a program that's already established, to where when you get there, it's kind of like, uh-oh, did I get in over my head? Then I had to strap my big boy boots on. But that coaching at Fullerton, it was, I like to say that was the place where I wanted to end up at. I coached at multiple schools, but there's nothing like coaching at the place where you're from. Because even though I've won championships at other schools, I'm not an alumni there. I'm happy for my athletes, but if I was to be at Fullerton and we won, I'm liable to do backflips, because it's something that I put my blood, sweat, and tears for to happen. Because like I said, back in the day, they used to call us Cal State Who. Now we're winning conference championships and stuff like that. So it was a great experience. I had the opportunity to coach there twice. I'm grateful for being hired there twice. That love right there stands alone from anything else, because I know the situation. They weren't just given, even though I had to interview and I had to out interview everybody else and become the candidate for the job. I felt like it was my job. Like, even when I was an athlete there, it was my job in the future.
Mm-hmm. I think even more impressive is you left them with the Adams State, and Adams State is a perennial powerhouse. And I remember telling the head coach, you need to hire this guy. If you don't hire him, I'm gonna hire him. And he and I think you guys won a national, like I felt like you really got on your own to develop your chops at Adams State. Like that sets you up for you coming back to Fullerton and stuff. So talk about that.
I called it my sabbatical. We were in Alamosa, Colorado, 7,500 feet up in elevation, which was the first thing that was new to me because I had never been in elevation like that before. Maybe played a couple of basketball games, but I'm coming from sea level trying to train these athletes with the same type of workouts. And Damon Martin, who's the head coach, the director of track and field there now, he grabbed me one day and he was like, he wanted to see my workout. And as a confident young coach, I'm like, man, ain't nobody ever asked me to see my workout. But he was asking me for a reason. My athletes were coming back and like, man, coach, he's trying to kill us. He ain't giving us no recovery. That was a learning experience in itself. And then that was actually my first lesson that I was taught from Damon Martin. And that was how to train in the elevation. And it's an art to it. I call it my sabbatical because when I got there, I didn't know what to expect. But as the year, I was there for 4 years. As the years went on, I could feel myself every year becoming a better and better coach. Not even a better coach, but a better leader. I'll even go as far to say is after leaving that place, I was ready to be a head coach. From accomplishment, in my mind, I still needed some work because I'm my own worst critic. But leaving there and going back into other programs and seeing what they needed in order to see that type of success that we were having at Adams State, it turned me into a whole nother person. It made me more serious. It matured me. That's kind of why I called it my sabbatical. But yeah, working under Damon Martin, it was a good experience because, like you mentioned, it was no secret who was my coach. And at the time, you were the head coach at Cal State LA. You were the president of the Division II Coaches Association. A lot of people, they saw our interaction and thought that was cool, but they don't see, the other, the competitive side as well as the standard of my pedigree of where I come from. So it wasn't just all kiki and ha. Yeah, I get to hang out with my coach, because we're both coaches now. They don't know about them back end phone calls like, you always making sure stand on top of this. And I'm like, oh, you know what I mean? Like, I got it. But as far as having that outside of my job and then working for Damon and learning how to win, making it contagious, understanding that there's something more than winning, and that's dominating. And when you dominate, you don't let nobody else win. That was the greatest thing that I got out of it. So coaching at Adams State was great. I matured. That 4-year period, it made me a man and let me know that was what I wanted to do. And I wasn't just good at it.
2012, you died.
Hold on, Alexander. I was just gonna say, Brandon's 11. You got like an hour. You got to get out of here. Probably want to. Do we want to finish this up, Alexander? Maybe.
It's just the transition back to Cal State Fullerton and just some closing thoughts about that, and then some final thoughts.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Okay,
Let me just close up the Adams State chapter. All right, 2012, you got Adams State to the men's program to their first ever outdoor track and field national championships. Earned a third place finish at the 2012 NCAA Division II Outdoor Track and Field Championships. At one point, was the number one team ranked by U.S. Track and Field Coaches Association. And during your time at ASU, Grizzly sprinters earned 45 All-American accolades and broke 35 school records. Then in 2013, you get rehired by Cal State Fullerton by Coach John Elders. Talk more about how that opportunity opened up and what it was like coming back to Cal State Fullerton for your second stint.
Believe it or not, there's only one other guy who can vouch for this story. We were in his living room. He was actually one of the media guys at ASU. We developed a friendship together, and we were sitting in his apartment watching the NBA, and he was asking me. He was like, because he's my buddy, so he knew that Cal State Fullerton was my dream job. Like, I don't want to coach anywhere else. I'm a Titan, but even though I coach at other places, I'm gonna give my all. I'm gonna give everything I got inside of me to try to will my athletes to understand and accomplish the same type of things that I got a chance to see. And he brought up the question. He said, "What if Cal State Fullerton called you back and offers you your old job back?" And for me, that would have been a personal reason, because my son and his mom were still in Southern California. His mom was the sprint coach on at Cal State Fullerton. And so I had been away from my son for 4 years, seeing him periodically. And it got to a point where you're having success as a coach, but mentally it's wearing on you as a father. So he brought it up, like, would you go back to Fullerton? I'm like, yeah, if the offer presented itself, not even knowing it would happen. And I think this was on a Thursday, and then that next Tuesday, my phone rang, and I'm sitting in the same guy's living room. And my eyes just get big from the phone call that I got, and they wanted me to throw my name back in the hat. The position was opening back up, and they wanted me to put my name back in the hat for it. And I was just shocked. And it's funny how God works, but I was just thinking about it on a Thursday, and it happened on a Tuesday. It was also a good situation because I don't think a lot of people know this, but we were the defending national champion at Adams State, and I recruited my butt off that summer. So we had an opportunity to win a title, but I didn't want to leave. And at that time, I knew that they weren't going to hold the position for the rest of the year. But what Coach Elders did was because I came in and I interviewed, and once I got the position once again, he allowed me to finish off the indoor season before I had to report for the outdoor season, which gave me an opportunity to try to win one more title before I left. And it gave me time to talk to my athletes at Adams State and give them a heads up to that I would be leaving. But I had a good relationship with them, and they understood that it was the opportunity for me to get back around my son. So it was I had everybody in my corner, and I was caught up between a dilemma because I was winning. And one thing that a lot of people may not know about Damon Martin is when I came on my interview visit, I knew that I wasn't the first candidate that they had chosen. There was a second go around, but me and that guy, we didn't even have a conversation about track and field. It was all about the concepts of being a man, respect, loyalty, all those type of things. And we kind of had similar philosophies in that sense. And once we got done, the way my life just went everywhere else, like, he hired me on the spot. And then to come in and learn from him, as well as help him accomplish some things that he hadn't accomplished in his career, that it seems like he had already accomplished everything. There was still goals that he had. So he brought out a fire in me that I hadn't seen in myself before because I was doubting myself as a coach. And as a father, I was caught up between my job and being a father because I was winning. I had goals of staying there and winning about 3 to 5 more titles. But as much as he's won, he would never, in the 4 years I was there, he would never let me forget the fact that I was a father. And he commended me on every little bit of time that I had to be a father away from the team and that he allowed for me to have. I took advantage of that. But I also worked my butt off while I was there. So he told me, he was like, look, kid, I love you. I enjoy everything that we're doing. But he wouldn't speak, he wouldn't even talk about track and field. He wouldn't even talk about the strategy for the next up and coming championship we were trying to win. All he talked about was being a father. And that speaks a lot because now that I think back on it, it's hard for coaches to be great fathers and coaches. I think he had a real good balance of both. He was a tremendous father. Like, I took a lot of notes. I want my kids to love me like his kids loved him. So that's the main thing that I actually took from Adams State.
All right, we're about to wind down on this podcast. So when you were hired back by Cal State Fullerton, Coach Elders was quoted as saying this about you: "I was extremely disappointed to lose Brandon 4 years ago, but in the end, it worked out for the best because he was able to grow as a coach and a leader at Adams State. To have him back now is super exciting, and he'll have a positive impact on this program right away. It's personally really gratifying for me to hire him as an alum in this program because he is a Titan through and through." Talk more about how your second stint at Cal State Fullerton made you a better coach.
It not necessarily a better coach. It made me a better leader. When my first go around at Fullerton, I was raw, but Coach Elders put a lot of responsibility on me based off of the pride that I had in the team. There wasn't any knowledge with it coaching wise. It was just all I had was my athletic knowledge and the pride that I took from wearing navy and orange. In comparison to the second go around, when I came back, he wasn't teaching me everything this time. I came back, I had some other things that I could bring to the table, and it was more of me taking initiative in bringing some of the things that I learned to making the team better instead of having to be told those things. So, like I said, it was a sabbatical for me. It gave me peace of mind and it made me a man. In my opinion, as far as coaching goes, it matured me a lot. And like they say, you send your kids out in the world to do great things, and then come back and teach and give back to your family, give your family knowledge. That's how I looked at my situation at Fullerton. I knew how to coach individual athletes when I got back, but I was more prepared to lead a whole team. Like I came back as a head coach.
Mm-hmm. All right, final question. You end up moving on to Texas to work in other endeavors. Talk more about what shaped your decision to move on to the next chapter in your life and what you've been up to lately.
As of right now, I am career-wise, I'm in management at UPS. I didn't think that it would be an easy transition, but as soon as I came through, once people found out that I was an ex-coach, everyone kept saying like, "Hey, keep everything that you learned as a coach." I'm thinking like, why? This is truck driving. But in all actuality, now they call UPS drivers the industrial athletes. So it's kind of like I'm coaching and I'm training and I'm communicating and I'm managing UPS drivers, but from a physicality standpoint, they are industrial athletes. You're up and down off of a truck. If you got 200 stops, then that means you're up and down off of a truck over 400 times a day. It's wear and tear on the body. So there's a lot of the things that, and me as a coach, I was an injury prevention coach. Now I'm an injury prevention supervisor. And that's one of the main things that it's actually the number one thing at UPS is safety. Safety for yourself and safety for others when you're out there in the vehicle. And there's a lot of tips that I can give to people on balance and posture and things of that nature. Or even I got a lot of drivers. I have about 5 drivers that go to the gym at 5 a.m. before they come to work and do those things. And it's just like being an athlete. You lift at 5 a.m, then you go to class, then you come back for practice. So it kind of structures you in a sense, and it all plays a part. And I didn't think that the transition would be as easy as it was for me, but I'm basically still coaching, just the industrial athlete.
Yep. I always say that once you're a coach, you're always a coach. No matter what I'm doing, I just say I'm coaching professional wise now, or I'm coaching in a business wise now, or I'm coach. I got, same. Coaching has helped me grow as a professional going into the private and business sector. And you just nailed it. Like, I always tell people, no matter what, I'll always be a coach. Right. It never stops.
Brandon Campbell, it's been a pleasure. I really enjoyed hearing your story. You had a really good journey from St. Louis, Missouri to Orange County to Colorado to Texas. And I've really enjoyed hearing all your experiences in basketball, track, all of the different coaching experiences you've had over the years and going to different parts of the country to help mold young lives. So Brandon Campbell, thanks for coming on the podcast.
No, not a problem at all. Like I told Chris, I've been trying to catch all of them. I love the fact that I get to watch some of the guys on the podcast that I actually have a relationship with and a whole lot of respect for. But I'm glad you guys had me on.
Thanks, B. Love you, bro. I'll talk to you soon.
Love you too, man. Take it easy.
All right.
All right.